welcome to Jets Rewind. I'm Marty Schupak. I'm in right outside of New York City, Valley Cottage. I'm joined by my two very close friends, Ray Clifford out in Ohio and Ralph Schrager up in Patriot Country in Belmont,
Enemy territory here. Yeah.
enemy territory, as they stole our number one choice for head coach, as usual. But anyway, how you guys are? Ray, how you doing out there in Ohio?
Another nice day, cold but nice.
Ray, did they have a parade for Ohio State?
Um, Not a parade, but they had a couple of, like they had a thing down at the shoe for the fans to come, and the coaches and players were there to talk and kind of a pep rally type of thing, only post
Yeah,
post
no.
championship.
Yeah,
Uh,
congratulations to the Buckeyes. Ralph, how's everything up in the Patriot land, up in New England?
well, we're getting ready for a big snowstorm tomorrow
Yeah,
night. Are you
yeah,
too?
yeah. We're gonna get something coming down from the. Well, I don't think it's gonna make it to us. Cleveland's gonna get hit. I think we're gonna just gonna
Right.
get like ice storm,
Yeah,
freezing rain.
we're going to get. I have my brothers coming over to watch the Super Bowl, so I'm not sure they're going to make it. But anyway, the Jets, they with Aaron Glenn on at the helm, he's putting together his assistants. We'll go over that. It is Super Bowl weekend. The Jets do have some history in the Super Bowl. Super Bowl three, of course, beating the Colts 16-7 as 18 and a half, 19-point underdogs. It's probably the highlight of my life. My life has gone downhill since then, but hopefully we'll turn the tide. But this being Super Bowl weekend, Ralph has a question or two, and I have a couple of questions. So we'll start with Ralph, and then we'll get right into coaching staff and a couple of the recent hires, one of which that I am just going crazy about. I'm happy. So go ahead, Ralph. You start.
Okay, a couple of Super Bowl type questions. Um, in the history of the Super Bowl, this tomorrow or Sunday, Andy Reid is going to be coaching against Nick Sirianni for the second time. There are four other instances where two coaches have met twice in the Super Bowl against each other. How can you name these four couplets?
All right, could I ask you a question on that? Uh,
Absolutely.
because the first two Super Bowls weren't called the Super Bowl. Are we calling those two Super Bowls?
Yes, the Super Bowl era it starts with Green Bay against Kansas
Okay.
City.
All right. So that's good. Okay, that's a very, very good question. All right.
And
Now,
actually, I have another question too about the Kansas City Chiefs. They've won four Super Bowls in their history.
Yep.
Um, and can you name the four quarterbacks that were on the opposing team that they beat?
Opposing team.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I know.
I know one.
Yeah.
The first one. So that's a good question. I'll go through my questions. We'll come back
All
to
right.
um, Jets question. This is easy. Uh, which two Jets running backs are tied for the franchise record for touchdown receptions career? Two Jet running backs are tied. You don't have to know the number, but you could give it to me. It's fun. So if you think about it, you should get at least one
So you're saying for running backs?
running
Uh,
backs.
yeah.
For
Running
their
back.
whole career, not like
The career, right. The career with the Jets. All right. And the other question
Hmm,
is it's becoming a cult
interesting
type
question.
question. Tom Brady, we all know, won the most Super Bowls, winning seven. What player won the second most? Okay.
That's a good one. How many?
Do you want me to tell you that? I
Well,
no, not
yeah.
really.
No? Okay.
Hold
okay,
off on it for a bit.
we'll leave it. All
It's the
right.
most.
I'll say this: it's more than three. How's that?
I would assume so, yeah.
All right.
A lot, a
Now,
lot of a lot of Steelers won four. I know that. Yeah.
right. The New York Jets are putting together their coaching staff. And by the way, I didn't even put it down as house cleaning, but did you guys see they signed a running back slash tight end today?
Yeah, fullback tight end. I made a comment that's one roster spot wasted. I can't stand fullback tight ends. It's just what
What is
Well,
this a free agent signing?
I guess he was, but
Yeah, he was on Denver. I guess he has a history with
but
Muji, I suppose.
Ralph, the good news is the only sort of stats I put together was as a tight end. I was looking up this guy, and I'll throughout the show I'll look at. I know you're not excited, neither am I, but let's see what Muji. He's supposed to be a good talent evaluator. We'll see. I'm going to go through some of the assistant coaches. We'll talk about it. Then, if you want to get into the Super Bowl, we're going to give our prediction. We're like about, I guess, 55, 60 hours away from the Super Bowl. We're recording this on Friday, February 7th at 5 o'clock. The Jets' offensive coordinator is Tanner Engstrand, Engstrand. The defensive coordinator is Steve Wilks. I'm going to make a couple of comments and I'll open up to you guys. If you don't have a comment, it's okay. I like Tanner Strand better than Steve Wilks. The only thing, couple of things I didn't like about that. Number one, Johnson didn't take him to Chicago. But with that said, Johnson, what's his first name, Ralph, the new coach?
Ben,
Ben
Ben.
And
Johnson. He announced that he's going to call the offensive play. So that's not a huge thing. But the thing that got me a little nervous as when Johnson left, why didn't the Campbell, the head coach of Detroit, give Tanner Engstrand the offensive coordinator job? He didn't do it. It was given to Morton, who what's his first name? Who
John Morton, I think.
he was the offensive coordinator for the Jets for 1 year.
Yeah, I know. Which really surprised me that they
Actually,
brought that
so
guy back.
that's a question I have. But you know, as I was receiving text messages showing my disfavor, Ralph brought up a good point that guys got to start somewhere. So he's got to, this is a starting point for him. I've seen him talk in interviews. He seems fairly down to earth and everything. He seems like a good guy. So we have to give him the benefit of that. The thing I'm nervous about, again, and you guys really walked me off the ledge because this Steve Wilks, or the amount of jobs he had in all those years, I really, it's questionable to me. And then I was reading that even when he was with the 49ers, that Nick Bosa even said after the Super Bowl, we weren't prepared on defense for a lot of those looks. So that got me nervous. And also during the Super Bowl, there was a time where the coach Shanahan, he kind of overruled Wilkes and he had to call the timeout because he didn't like the look. These little things bother me. Okay. The one thing I'll say though about a coordinator is if you guys remember going back to Coach Campbell, their first offensive coordinator didn't pan out and he fired him. Then he hired Johnson. So I'm hoping that Aaron Glenn, I know these guys tend to be loyal. I don't want him to be overly loyal. So I'm hoping that Wilkes works out. He has some head coaching experience and an interim head coach. But I'd like your comments on both of these. I'll start with Ralph. Go ahead, Ralph.
Well, as far as Wilkes goes, yeah, I mean he's bounced around. He landed at some places where coaches were lame ducks and they all got fired the next year. You talked about Scott Turner, Marty, and how you liked him as a hire, mainly because his father was a good offensive coordinator. He has a similar history moving around a lot. And the thing is, we want to get the best coordinators, but they're not available. Those guys have jobs and teams aren't getting rid of them. So, I think the thing with Wilkes, he can be a mentor, probably someone for Aaron Glenn maybe to lean on when things get really crazy, which they will. So there's that aspect of it. He's had some successes in some places. The 49ers came within a hair of winning the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and last year they absolutely were a disaster defensively. So he's not the worst guy out there. As far as Engstrom goes, again, maybe the Lions made the wrong call. Maybe they should have hired him. We don't know. Morton is a retread. The funny thing about this time of year, with coordinators is it's like musical chairs, you know. Everyone doesn't have a job and they all start landing at other places, and it's kind of ridiculous. It's a very small, subculture. Everyone
Yeah.
knows everyone. Um, so, I take some of that with a grain of salt, but and we're not going to know about any of these guys until it actually happens. But so, it's all conjecture.
Yeah. Okay. Ray, did you have any feelings about these two?
Not really. I think it's kind of like everything. It's a bit of a crapshoot. You're taking a chance on guys, and you're hoping they blend with your team and what you have for talent well. I think I had no problem with Wilkes. I think I think he's shown some ability to do it. I mean, a lot of it's going to depend on how do they shore up things like the defensive line. Um, because right now we're we got like half a defensive line and and shore up a little bit more on the offensive line, I think, are the important things. And I think that'll affect how well these guys do as coordinators or as coaches. Um, but I'm okay pretty much with all of them. I think, like you say, some of these guys, they weren't in the best spot for them. Um, and so maybe this is a better fit. You gotta trust that they're picking the right guys. I like Aaron so far. I have a lot of faith that he's going to be more of a hold accountable kind of head coach than Saleh was. I don't think he's going to be the stone face that Saleh was most of his turn time with the Jets. I think we're going to get what we were expecting to get out of Aaron, whether it's the results, who knows? But I think he's assembled a pretty decent staff so far.
Marty, I got just one question on this. I'm assuming that Glenn and Wilkes are going to run a 4-3. Is
I don't know if they will. I mean, that's what I'm guessing too.
That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
and the thing I'm interested in is like if Glenn comes in here and he's like, I want to run a 3-4, and Wilkes come in. Wilkes has been running 4-3s. So I wonder, does Glenn demand that Wilkes, change to a 3-4, or does it's interesting.
I would have talked about that before he hired him.
Yeah, I suppose. I suppose.
Come in and throw a curveball at him like that. That'd be a tough one.
But I'm always of the opinion is that you adjust, and a lot of coaches don't do this, you adjust to the talent you have also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like coaches that, they're brought up a certain way, but my main thing with these coaches is show me flexibility. You're able to I hate to use the expression think outside the box. Everybody's using that these days, but really have a vision what you could do with it. Don't be locked in on just one thing. So, go ahead, Ralph.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, but then you look at a guy like Parcells, and he always liked the 3-4. So what he would do is bring in guys that he coached before who were 3-4 players. So I guess you can approach it one of two ways. You either coach to the players or you find the players that'll fit your system. We can do more of an analysis on the Jets like defensive line and see. I think at this point, when you look at guys like Jermaine Johnson and McDonald, they really, are 4-3 defensive ends. I don't think Jermaine Johnson would be a 3-4 outside linebacker. I don't think he'd work at that.
Right.
So we'll see.
Yep, we'll see. Just so you guys know, a little update. They signed Andrew Beck today, who played college ball at Texas. I think he was an undrafted free agent. He spent 1 year or a few months on the Patriots practice squad, then 3 years with the Broncos, a year with Houston, and then last year he split between the Packers and the Houston practice squad or off-season roster.
Wasn't he with Denver at some point? I thought
he was. I said Denver from 2019, 2022.
Uh-huh.
He only has 6 yards rushing, 1 rushing touchdown. 25 receptions, 214 yards, 3 TDs. And there's some, I looked, he had a couple of pretty good games, which is interesting. But look, you don't know till you see it, so we'll have to see what happens. The Jets always seem to win the offseason Super Bowl. So
Well, that one is not going to do it for him.
no, okay. I'm going to name four the next group that they hired. If you guys want to comment, I'm going to only comment on one or two. Special teams coordinator Chris Banjo, wide receivers coach, they retained Sean Jefferson, quarterbacks coach Charles London, offensive line coach Steve Hayden. He's from the former tight ends coach from the Lions. Excuse me. I'm going to comment just on Hayden. I mean, if you look at their tight ends, the guy that who's the good guy they have now?
Laporta.
Laporta showed a lot of improvement with his blocking from one year to the next, which I think is a big sign. And a lot of Jet fans might be nervous about having a tight ends coach as their offensive line coach. But as you know, Ralph mentioned before, they got to start somewhere. And Bill Callahan, probably the best offensive line coach in the league, he started out as a tight end coach. So that's my comment in those groups. I mean, Chris Banjo is supposed to be an up and comer. Westhoff loves him. Jefferson is close to Garrett Wilson, so maybe there was.
He knows how to baby him.
Yeah, and the quarterbacks coach Charles London, which I think is a weak pick. He's got no experience as a quarterbacks coach. He was just a running backs coach. That might have been a favor or something, whatever. So, Ray, do you want to comment on any of those hires at all? Those four?
The tight end coach being the offensive line coach. He's probably dealing a lot with the offensive line anyway, because tight ends aren't just receivers, even though they are a lot more now. They have a lot of blocking responsibilities. So he's probably involved in that, even though he's not, the offensive line coach. So I don't know that that's gonna be a big problem. I don't think he can be any worse than what we've had for the last few years. So
Okay,
I'm okay with that one. Other than that,
right.
quarterback coach, I would have liked to seen somebody else, but I'm not gonna, I don't know anything about the guy, so I don't know that means he's terrible or
Between quarterback coach, passing coordinator, offensive coordinator, there seems to be a lot of redundancy in these teams now. I mean, they never had this many coaches years ago. It's gotten crazy. As far as the offensive line coach, I mean, if you haven't coached the offensive line and it's your first time doing it, I suppose being a tight ends coach makes as much sense as coming from any other position. So I have no idea how the guy's going to do. He's very important to the future of this team, and I hope he works out. But his background seems to be logical for that position.
Right, yeah. So we'll have to see. I know, Ray, they did want to interview, and it looked like they wanted to hire the assistant quarterbacks coach of the Washington Commanders, whose name slips me, but they wouldn't give the Jets permission. So obviously they think very highly of them. And a lot of times these teams, they'll project the coach and the general manager. If a team is like doing well or on the rise and making playoffs, they'll project their staff. If this guy leaves, who do we replace him with? So obviously the Commanders are a team on the rise and they wanted to hold on to that guy, but we'll have to see. All right, the last four, which I don't even know if you guys heard of them. Okay, defensive line coach Eric Washington. Ralph, I'm going to have you comment first. Linebacker coach Aaron Curry, defensive backs coach Chris Harris from the Titans, and passing game coordinator Scott Turner, Norv Turner's son. Go ahead, Ralph. Any comments or any of them?
The linebackers coach Aaron Curry, fourth pick in the draft. Everyone thought he was going to be great, and he was a total bust, which means nothing as far as coaching goes.
Right.
Scott Turner, Norv Turner, these sons, sometimes they do well. Shanahan's done well, McVay has done well, but like I said, he's bounced around a lot, and if you look closely at the reasons, it's probably similar to Wilkes in some of those cases. He's had some good success, some not so good, and like I said, the good guys, teams don't let them go, So this is what you have to do, and you have to hope that one of these guys just blossoms when he becomes a Jet coach. The other thing I want to say is about Aaron Glenn, which I find interesting, is they're very. I can't. How many coaches can successful head coaches in the history of the NFL you can think of who are that level of NFL player that Aaron Glenn was? It's very rare to even make it as a head coach when you've been such a good football player. I mean, if Aaron Glenn had the career he had, like with the Patriots during their Super Bowls, he'd be getting Hall of Fame votes. He was a tremendous player, and I find it very interesting that Herm Edwards was a good football player. He was not as good as Glenn, but he was
Let
good.
me ask you this, Ralph. Who was a better football player, Aaron Glenn or Mike Vrabel?
I think Glenn was. Vrabel started out had a struggle, and then Belichick got a hold of him and he put him in the right position. He became a very good player, but I would go with Glenn actually.
How
I mean,
about
and
yeah,
there's an example of a guy who was on, he was on all those Super Bowl teams, so it helped his career and reputation. But he was good.
he was real good. How about you, Ray? Who's better, Aaron Glenn or Mike Vrabel as a player?
I liked Vrabel, but I think Glenn was clearly better as a at his position. I mean, I agree. I mean, he had okay years in Pittsburgh, but he was nothing that people were like clamoring over. But he got to New England, and like Belichick does, he puts him in. He picks up guys who fit a certain need, and he's able to use them and make them more seem more relevant than I think they are if they went to someone else and were in a different system. Um, Parcells was good at that too, finding the guy for his system. That's why he'd always bring in the guys who could play it. But yeah, I think Glenn just was a naturally better all-around athlete than Vrabel, but especially as a DB. Hey, real quick on the when you're talking about the quarterbacks coach, maybe the reason that might be an indicator that he's leaning towards bringing Aaron back, where that guy won't really have anything to do if it's Aaron. He,
Right.
he isn't going to need to. I don't think Aaron's going to look to him for what to do if he's struggling. So
Yeah.
maybe that's an indicator.
Okay.
Maybe they're going to get a running quarterback, Marty. They'll run the Wildcat, huh?
Adrian Gonzalez. That's the guy I want.
Yeah, there it
That's
is.
your guy.
Or is it Adrian Martinez? I always mix
Martinez, I think it was.
Martinez,
Yeah.
Gonzalez.
I like him too, but I don't think he could lead.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I'll just comment on out of those four. I guess Scott Turner too. I mean, again, look, a guy that's father's a coach. There's no guarantee that he knows what he's doing. And as Ralph said, he's been around a lot of teams, but I just like the fact that he does have a bit of experience. When they first started hiring these guys, I thought it started out really not that good because of the real lack of inexperience. And I wasn't a Steve Wilkes fan, but I thought it was getting better as their hiring process went on. So I like that out of the four. That's my favorite. Ray, do you have any more comments on those four? Defensive line coach Eric Washington, Aaron Curry, linebacker coach Chris Harris. I heard one guy say Chris Harris has done a great job with the Titans secondary, but I don't know if you could judge that in a team like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm hopeful, but I have no real expectation. I mean, I hope Scott Turner can kind of emulate his dad a little bit and have the kind of success he had. But Norv was pretty much, great on the Cowboys and iffy the rest of the time, from what I remember. But Aaron Curry, like you say, he was a bust as a player, but maybe he might be a good linebackers coach for all I know. And so, we won't know until we get him out there, and then we can start griping about him as we go.
Right, right. Now, I just want to mention two of my favorite hires were in the front office, and I like the fact that they retained Phil Savage, and I also love the hire of Rick Spielman, who ironically was in on the interview process with Mike Tannenbaum for like the Team 33 or whatever, and he ends up helping to pick the general manager. Then he gets hired by the organization.
Was that his payment instead of paying him money, they gave him a job?
I know it sounds like Washington D.C. to me, Ralph. You know that Ralph, I kind of texted and Ray made a comment that it's a little fishy to me. But listen, I always liked Rick Spielman. I thought he was really good with Minnesota. I listened to his show. To me, he's a phenomenal draft evaluator, and he is going to be working remotely. And I heard him talk about the job where he doesn't want to make decisions, but they're going to bounce things off him, and he's going to give his opinion on different things, including the draft and everything else, which I really like. I think that's a home run. I really do. And in the course of those two hires, I guess it was the general manager. What's his name? Margie?
Muji.
They fired a longtime executive, Greg Nijma and Dave Sosi, who I'd never heard of, but apparently they were there for like 10 and one was there for 15 years. So I like the fact that he went in there and he got rid of those guys. If you remember, Bill Parcells came in and he just about, changed the wallpaper. I remember Ralph, the woman that we know who, the woman scout, what was her name again?
Carver.
Harvard, yeah, she very nice lady. We had dinner with her one night. And
Yeah.
she told us Parcells came in and fired her,
Yeah.
So there's something you have to set a certain tone. And Ralph brought up the example when Parcells came in. Who did he cut? Was it Marvin Washington or
Yes, it was Marvin Washington. That was a statement thing, because Washington was an established, solid player, but he just felt like he was putting everyone on alert that nobody's job was safe unless you played football. And that was actually the best question in Aaron Glenn's press conference, initial one. All the other ones like Costello and Samini were asking lame questions, which are easy to answer. Couldn't get good. This woman asked him, she said, "What did you learn when you went from Rich Kotite to Parcells?" And he said it was change of culture, bringing in the right people, which is part of it. But I wish he had expanded because there's got to be more to it than that with Parcells. Everywhere he goes, starts out with a horrible team, and he turns them around in a year or two. There's got to be. I don't know what it is with him. He has some magic formula, but I just certainly hope Aaron Glenn, picked up more than just changing the culture.
well, Ralph, as we know, there are some people that are just leaders. I mean, we remember when Vince Lombardi went back coaching after he retired to the Redskins. He was there 1 year, but you could just see the change of
Yeah,
culture.
exactly.
And
I remember Sonny Jurgensen. He said, "If he'd been my coach my whole career, I'd have been in the Hall of Fame." He said what he said was he made things much simpler,
right,
and
right,
yeah, no, Lombardi was like that. There are some guys that are going to do that no matter where they go. They
right.
take theirs and beat yours, and take yours and beat theirs.
Yeah, that sounds like some sort
Phillips,
of
yeah,
Phillips. Yeah.
talking about Don Shula,
That's
yeah.
it. Ray, do you have any comments on the Jets retaining Phil Savage or the hiring of Rick Spielman, the former general manager of the Minnesota Vikings?
I like them both. I mean, I'm glad they kept them. They're just basically going to be consultants, but there's a ton of experience between the two of them, and I like that. And Rick did a good job in Minnesota. Savage has been around. He was Baltimore, then Cleveland, or maybe it was Cleveland, Baltimore, then Cleveland again. But I like I liked a lot of the things he did when he was with them. So, I mean, any experienced voice, I think, is a good thing, especially with the younger coaches and the younger staff.
So
Right.
I got a question,
Go ahead,
Marty.
Bob. And then
You
I
know,
want to get to another thing after that before we
yeah,
Super Bowl. Go ahead.
yeah. Retaining Savage. I guess I remember when Salah came in, they cleaned that everyone out except for Boyer. I think they like to keep one or two guys in there, just you know, who know things that they don't know. But what I'm wondering about is the scouting staff. Do they clean house with that, or do they keep a lot of these guys?
I think they have to keep some of the guys.
Yeah,
They're developing their master list. Uh,
yeah,
and I don't even know, I didn't read one thing if the Jets had any representation at the Senior Bowl,
right.
which is interesting. So I think it's a common thing where they retain him and then they give him their opinion. And if the Jets like him, they'll keep some and they'll let some go. But
Uh,
that's a
So,
very
Aaron's starting out as a scout. I
mhm.
think it was his first thing. Maybe it was his second.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Being
right.
being a scout, I think he can make those kind of decisions himself and just say, these are the kind of guys I like. I like, how you went about it. He knows scouting. So if they keep him, it's because I think he wanted him.
I think Muji probably started out as a scout too. Well, as Parcells, he said to Aaron Glenn, he said, "You got to start out as a scout. You got to learn from the bottom up." And hopefully Moji did too. I believe he did. I'll have to check that.
Yeah, I want to bring some. We have a fan. I think I told you. I should have forwarded you the letter um, from William. I forgot his last name. I don't have to mention it, but he after our last show, emailed me that he completely 100% disagrees about the Jets retaining Aaron Rodgers. Now, Aaron Rodgers had a meeting with Muji and Glenn, and they said they're going to talk more. So I just want to go over it again. At this point, I want to start with Ray. Ray, do you think right now, and I know there are tremendous cap implications. I think it's 59 million in I guess 26, but right now the Jet team, and keep in mind too, when we talk about cap implications, I can't guarantee it, but I would guess that we're going to get anywhere from like 2 to 5 or 6 free agents from the Detroit Lions. And I know a few of those guys are injured, but Ray, your feeling about Aaron Rodgers at this point, do you think we should retain him? Any ideas?
Well, I mean, yeah, I do. I mean, I don't see how cutting him is going to help. I know cleaning house. I know it didn't go well last year, but they don't have a real backup plan at quarterback. Having him for another year, I don't think hurts us any. Um, I think if we improve the offensive line a little and they can protect him a little more, and he's another year away from his injury, he can look a little more like what we expected him to be. But I don't have high expectations for him. But I don't see how it's advantageous to us to get rid of him at this point. It's going to cost us a lot of money. He could mentor somebody. I don't think he's going to be the Aaron that came in the last 2 years and had all these demands and they met them. I think he's going to have to if they keep him, it's because he knows he's going to you know it's not his clubhouse anymore. He's gonna be there to mentor guys and to he's got to learn a new offense. If they don't think he can, they'll get rid of him, or if he doesn't want to, they'll get rid of him. But without knowing that stuff, and I think keeping him is a better option at this point.
Okay, and I know we're revisiting the exact same thing. I just want to hear from Ralph if you had any change at all about keeping Aaron Rodgers.
No, yeah, I feel like as far as learning I know he wants to play somewhere. So, and no matter where he goes, he's going to have to learn a new offense. I hear this guy, our OC, they're going to run sort of a West Coast variation, which seems like almost that everyone does. And, it probably wouldn't be that hard for him to pick up with all his experience. Yeah, I don't see any plan B either. I'd rather watch him for the season than Tyrod Taylor. Nothing against Tyrod Taylor, but he's a backup, and to watch him for a full season would be kind of tough. Um, are they going to get a? They're going to get a draft. They're not going to draft a quarterback at number 7. I think that would be
No,
crazy. And even if they did, I don't want him to play. So
yeah.
So
Right.
I just think, for lack of a better plan, I think it's probably the best of the worst choices we have at this point.
Right, and I again, and we this is the second time we're going over this. I don't see another plan. If somebody showed me another plan, if somebody said, "Well, we're going to sign Sam Darnold for 1 year for $25 million," son, just something
Yeah.
like as an alternative, I agree. We're going to get killed on the cap, but I mentioned also cap hell doesn't scare me as much as it used to. And just look at the Denver Broncos. So
Well, Marty, I mean, are we going to get killed with a cap whether we keep him or not? I think it's bad either way.
Yeah,
it's
it is. It's worse if we keep him, I think. We owe him a little more.
I think it's a matter, and 59 million if we keep him this for next year, and like something like 29 or 30 million if we don't. He'll
Well,
be
maybe can they negotiate it down, or are they no matter how much less he takes, they still on the books for 59.
that's for a cap option.
Yeah,
I don't know, but I thought about that, Ralph.
yeah.
He really wants to play with the Jets. I think he bought a house in New Jersey that he really likes, and he said he just redid it. So
Right, and he put an extension on for Malachi Corley, so he's really committed.
He's showing him how to hold on to the ball until he's in the end zone.
all right, let's get to the Super Bowl before we get to the trivia questions. The Kansas City Chiefs are 1.5-point favorites over the Philadelphia cheesesteaks, Eagles. By the way, I did a Two Tuesday, and apologies to Jets fans. I think I pronounced Jason Dart instead of Jackson Dart. I was going over some of the draft, so I apologize for that. But that's
Well, he's not a Jet yet, so you don't have to
yeah,
apologize,
that's
Jet
right.
fans.
But anyway,
Old Miss fans.
1.5-point favorites. I want to know if you, before we give our prediction, what thoughts you have about maybe each team or the game, or you could just give your prediction. I'm going to start with Ralph, then go to Ray, then I'll bat cleanup.
Well, I mean, I've been picking against Kansas City for about a year and a half now, and they keep winning. So I have to stick with my guns, and I think Philly has at least as much talent as Kansas City. Obviously, Kansas City has a big advantage in the quarterback. Obviously, like we always say, whichever team controls the line is going to win. I think it'll be interesting. I think that Philly has. I think law of averages. It takes a lot of luck. I mean, Kansas City, what they've done is tremendous, but they've been lucky a few times. Like D Ford, we remember that. In the Philly game, they got a gift at the end of the game with that that really bad call. What was it, defensive holding, or was it interference? Whatever it was, it was a real soft call, and it basically cost Philly any chance of getting tying the game. So I think it's a toss up, and I think for once Philly gets the luck here.
Okay, what's your prediction, Ralph? We're going to give our prediction.
31-17, my favorite score.
Okay. All right, and it's funny, Ralph.
More than luck.
Ray and I were talking, and Ray asked me the question. He said, "Marty, do you think anyone ever thought of the idea of putting Becton at right guard? The guy's been playing awesome.
Well, they have a great offensive line coach,
Yeah.
which tells you that how important that is, because that's why they're a factor every year. Philly,
Yeah.
I know.
But do you
Off
think
the board, that's a great line,
do you think
even without Kelsey.
do you think Salah or Carter would even have thought about that for this guy?
It wouldn't have worked here anyway, because they
No,
wouldn't have coached him up.
It never does. If you remember when they try to move him to the opposite side of tackle. He maintained that he couldn't put the pressure on his bad knee or whatever. It was
Yeah.
just a disaster,
Yeah. He needed to get out of here, and we needed him to get out of
Right,
here.
right. And not to beat a dead horse, I wanted Tristan Wirfs. I'm on the record for that. But anyway, go ahead, Ray. Your thoughts about the game and prediction, and we'll get to our classic trivia.
I think Philly has all the talent to beat them. I just don't know if they're gonna. And I'm not going conspiracy theory, and I don't think the refs have it out for Chiefs, but they do get the benefit of the doubt. I will say that. I'm not going to say the calls are, rigged, but man, they get the benefit of the doubt on the close calls.
But Ray, didn't Michael Jordan always get the benefit of the doubt, and didn't
Sure he did.
Tom Brady get the benefit
Sure
of
he
the
did.
doubt?
Sure they did.
Something like
It goes that way. That's what I'm saying. So I'm not saying that, you hear this, the refs are, being directed by Goodell to to get Casey in there. No, I think it's just, the more you win, the more you earn most of the time, earn the benefit of the doubt on tough calls. And with the league being how it is about protecting its stars and especially the quarterbacks, anything that looks even close to a tough hit, a bad hit, is getting flagged. But that being said, they do get the benefit of those a lot. But I just think until somebody beats them, it's going to be Kansas City. And I hate to say it. And I do think Philly, if anybody's going to beat them, I think Philly is, with Barkley this year, the team that can do it. I just don't, I thought Buffalo had the team that could do it too. So, I think
what score? Give me a score, Ray.
I think it's going to be a one-score game. I think it's going to be 24-20.
24-20 KC. All right. And of course, we all know that Braden Mann is the punter for Philadelphia. So go ahead, Ralph. What were you going to say before I
No, I was going to say, I remember at the beginning of the year, these writers say, which coaches are on the hot seat? And they're saying Nick Sirianni. And I'm going, Nick Sirianni? That guy, all he's done is win. Okay, so he hasn't won the Super Bowl. How many coaches have? They're so quick to say that sort of stuff. Now they're doing that to Sean McDermott. I'll take Sean McDermott. He's okay in my book. I mean, you look at how close he's coming. Was it his fault that the guy dropped that pass? What can he do about that?
Right.
So I don't hear anyone ragging on like John Harbaugh, who's a terrific coach. He's really struggled in the playoffs the last few years or Matt LaFleur, another guy who was a top seed many years with Aaron Rodgers and never got to the Super Bowl. I mean, these guys are good, and it'll happen eventually. But everyone thinks it's like you win the Super Bowl or bust. You either win the Super Bowl or you're no good, and that mentality.
I don't buy that.
I don't buy that either. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And the thing was, Sirianni, they didn't start out hot. So it got the hot seat got hotter in the press. I don't think it necessarily ever was for the Philly management, but I think they started out 2-3 or something.
Two and two, I think.
2-2, yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of these teams. I know Belichick always talked about, the first month or so, I was just feeling things out.
Yeah.
And then you pick up momentum.
Yes. All right. I'm going to go. Kansas City's going to win 31-27. I'm a huge Andy Reid fan, which is one of Ralph's trivia questions, and I think he's a better coach than Sirianni. And I really believe after they lost to Tampa Bay, he looked at it and he's going to do everything he could to give this guy Mahomes protection. Because if you remember that Tampa Bay Super Bowl, he was on the run almost every play too. So
Tackles were injured.
Yeah, they were injured. And injuries are part of the game, but I think that they're gonna do well. And I think that their draft pick, who is it? Xavier, what's his name, Ralph?
Worthy, yeah.
Worthy is going to really have a good game. That guy was
But he's
getting,
not as good as Malachi Corley, according to Joe
I
Douglas.
know, and he was getting better as the season went on. If you watch this guy, so I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to start like 20-7. So if it ends by midnight, it'll be a miracle the way they drag these things out.
Yeah.
The defensive coordinator for Philly. I know Spags is for the Chiefs. Who's the defensive coordinator for the Eagles? Because I like Spags a lot, and he could be a big part of the difference.
By the way, Ray, speaking of Kansas City offensive line, I was reading a list of one person's list of the top. They rated their top 100 free agents coming out this year, and number 2 on the list is Trey Smith. And Ray and I were screaming at Joe Douglas for 4 rounds in that draft. Take a flyer on this guy, for Christ's sake. You know,
Well, the one that kills me is then we traded our pick to Kansas City and they picked him.
oh my God.
That's the part of that really kills me. But
It's
yeah,
it's a really good one, Ray. Vic Fangio, who's a
oh,
terrific defense.
Yeah, that's his limit, though. He's not a head coach, but he's
That's okay. That's okay.
no, it is okay. Yeah, those guys.
That's all right.
Spags.
Yeah, Spags too. He tried it too.
Exactly. Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
that's okay. These guys.
Yeah, I mean, being a head coach there are very few. The percentage of successes are really low.
I kind of feel in a way that getting Aaron Glenn, and I mentioned this to Ray, Ralph, a few weeks ago, we're kind of getting a part of Bill Parcells too, because I have a feeling that he's going to bounce things off Bill Parcells time and again. I really believe that. He's right nearby. He's within like 15, 20 minutes of the facility when he's.
Oh, is he? I thought he was down in Florida or
Well,
something.
he might come up
Back
though.
and forth.
So hopefully, even if he's not, they have Zoom and everything else. So I think he'll bounce things off. And I actually think Parcells, he kind of has a little bit of a vested interest right now in the Jets. So I think he's going to be rooting for the Jets also this year.
You know, if I was in that press conference, my question to Aaron Glenn would be, what is the big difference between being an assistant coach and being the head coach? How do you have to change? Where? Because for Parcells, he always said he was too close to the players his first year as head coach for the Giants. He had to separate himself from that. And that probably is the case with every assistant coach because they're really tight with the players. And I would be very interested to hear how Aaron Glenn is going to go about that, if he's very conscious of that. And that's something that Sala never overcame. He just couldn't hold anyone accountable because his relationship with the players was that of an assistant coach, and you can't have that.
Right, you're absolutely right. And just to confirm that, the great coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Chuck Noll, they asked him like, I think a year or two after he lost his job, his biggest regret, and he said, I was too loyal to the guys that got me to the Super Bowl. And
Yeah.
he says I should have cut ties, and that's one thing about Bill Belichick.
He's cold. Yeah.
He wasn't afraid to cut ties. You have to look at it really just like a computer. There's no personality vibe. You got to cut ties like that. All right, let's get back to the trivia question. We have the 3 predictions. Ralph, let me see if you can answer my Jet question, and we'll go to yours. We'll bounce back to my Super Bowl.
Oh my gosh, what is your
So
question?
here's my Jet question. What 2 Jet running backs
Right.
are tied for the franchise record for touchdown receptions in a career? And you can tell me how many it was. So who wants to start out?
There's so many guys. I mean, I feel like it's not one of these guys is probably not an obvious one. I'm thinking someone like Boozer or Johnny Hector or Richie Anderson, someone like that. I don't know. What do you think, Ray?
I was thinking Boozer, and then I wasn't sure on the other one. I was trying to. There's somebody, and I can't think of his name, and I was just seeing a highlight of him, and I think that might be the one. But the only other one I could think of was maybe Curtis Martin.
Yeah, Curtis would have been one. Yeah.
Well, there are 2 players. They each had 12 receiving TDs, which is so low.
Yeah, that's really pathetic.
But Emerson Boozer's one of them, and the other one is Freeman McNeil,
McNeil.
Freeman McNeil.
That's what I was trying to think
who
of.
is a good receiver out of the backfield.
Hmm.
So,
I was gonna
that's
say, who is
yeah.
the guy we drafted out of UCLA? Because that's who I was thinking of.
Right. All right, Ralph, ask your question again. It's like a Ray question because I don't think I'm going to get it. I have no clue. I got one, but go ahead, Ralph.
All right, so Reed and Sirianni are coaching against each other in the Super Bowl for the second time. There have been four other pairs of coaches who have met in the Super Bowl twice against each other. Can you name them? Which ones do you have, Marty?
I just have the first one. I have Landry and Vince Lombardi.
Landry and Vince Lombardi, they never met each other in the Super Bowl. They never played each other in the Super Bowl.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're
They did.
right. You're right.
Yeah,
You're
that was
absolutely
before
right.
the Super Bowls.
Yeah, okay. You're absolutely right.
You're half right on that, though.
Sorry, Ralph. I know.
Yeah, you are half right. Ray's got the other half. Who's the other half, Ray, on that one?
Chuck Noll.
That's right.
Right.
Landry and Chuck Noll met twice in the Super Bowl.
I think I got three. I'm trying to remember the fourth.
All right. What else you got, Ray?
Coughlin and Belichick.
That's right.
Oh, that's
Reed, Reed and whatever. Reed and Shanahan.
That's right. The last one to me is the most obvious one.
I know. That's what I'm trying.
It was the first one I thought of when they asked me the question. Because it's the only time in I think in the history of the Super Bowl where the teams played each other back-to-back years, the same teams.
Ooh. Back to back.
Let's see.
And
Well, we had the. Let's see. That's where the Landry and Knoll one came for me.
Was it Walsh? Was he one of them?
No.
Okay.
No, I thought so too. No, that wasn't.
Go ahead.
It was Buffalo against Dallas in the early 90s, back-to-back.
Yeah.
Marv Levy and Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great question. Okay, let me ask mine again. It's a little simpler. Okay, I mentioned that Tom Brady, as a player, has the most Super Bowl wins, 7.
Right. Oh, jeez.
All right, now what player has the second most? And I'll give you the hint now. It was 5. So
That doesn't really help me. I'm going to throw some names out. Charles Haley, Deion Sanders.
I was thinking quarterbacks.
Yeah.
No
any
wonder.
guesses, Ray?
Huh?
Any guesses?
He's probably right on Charles Haley now. That he's
The answer is Charles Haley.
Charles Haley. Whoa.
The San Francisco 49ers championship teams in 88 and 89, so it's the Super Bowls the year after. And for the Cowboys, the seasons 92, 93, 95. So,
Wow. Charles
I was
Haley.
thinking quarterbacks.
He's the Robert Ory of football.
Yeah.
So I got my other question, Marty. Remember that one?
go ahead. What was it?
The Kansas City Chiefs have won 4 Super Bowls. Can you name the quarterbacks from the other team that they defeated in those 4 Super Bowls?
I took down Bart Starr, but obviously that's I don't know why.
Bart Starr beat them. He didn't lose.
Yeah. The other quarter, I have no idea. That's a race.
I'll give you a hint. 2 of them were Patriots at one time.
Just a few years later.
Oh, wait a minute.
Just a few years later, the
Jimmy
Chiefs were-
Garoppolo?
Jimmy Garoppolo, yeah.
Okay. Who, by the way, the rumors are that he's going to end up on the Jets. I don't know how, but
Oh, forgot. I didn't even know he was still in the league.
I don't know. Go ahead. So Jimmy Garoppolo and Ray.
Well, their
years
first
later,
Super
it was them again.
Huh?
A couple of years later, the same 2 played. Who did
That's
they?
right.
Who was the quarterback?
Who was the quarterback? It was like last
You
year,
love him.
wasn't it? Or
Yeah. Or the year before, last year, year before. You
Marty's favorite quarterback in the league.
wanted us to draft him
Yeah.
as Mr. Irrelevant.
What the heck's his name? I forget it now too. Unbelievable. Forgetting these. Let's see.
BP, Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy, yes.
Okay,
Now
1970, Marty.
Yeah, I like that. And what else? Is there another one, Ralph?
1970.
1970, when the Kansas City Chiefs, who did they beat in the Super Bowl after the?
Vikings.
That's right. Who was the Vikings?
Quarterback.
Joe Cap?
Joe
Yeah.
Cap. Joe Cap. And of course, the last one is the easiest one because it's the guy who's going to be there in 2 days, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah, now quickly on Jalen Hurts, Ralph, give the history of his college history, Jalen Hurts. If you go over,
Yeah, I mean, he came in as a freshman at Alabama, and he was a runner basically, and I think that he won a national championship, and then the next year he was
He
in the
went to
national championship game against Georgia, and they were getting beaten, and they threw Tua in the game, and Tua came back and he took the job, and then Hurts transferred to Oklahoma to play under Lincoln Riley, and he Riley turned him into a quarterback.
right?
And I never thought he'd get this far in the NFL, but it's amazing. It's a good story.
You were the
Didn't
second round
Tua get hurt in that game for a bit, and didn't Hurts have to come in and help
Yeah,
Tua
I
the year
believe so.
before that?
Yeah, yeah.
I think he did, and then he went to
Was he a
Oklahoma.
second round pick or first round pick?
Second.
Yeah.
That was a year that was a tremendous quarterback year. That was the Joe Burrow, Herbert, Tua, Jordan Love.
Was Lamar Jackson in that one?
No, Lamar Jackson was the Darnold year.
Oh,
But this was a year that nobody talked about, and it's probably going to go down as one of the 3 or 4 best quarterback drafts in the history of the league.
yeah.
Right.
And the other thing I wanted to bring up, Marty, is our discussion about who do we think has a better resume as a head coach in their career, Andy Reid or Belichick. So, what do you think, Marty?
The obvious answer would be Belichick, except for the fact that, and I know we all think very highly of Bill Parcells because he built multiple teams. So that's the thing. Andy Reid has done that with the Eagles and then the Chiefs. But I don't know if you could really take anything away from Belichick because he had Brady. Everyone does that. Like, what's his record besides him? I would have to say that Belichick's resume is better. The one year when Brady got hurt, they put in the who was
Matt Castle, yeah.
Matt Castle, and I think they just missed the playoffs.
Yeah, they did well. That was one of Belichick's best
Yeah.
coaching jobs.
So
I
I
would
would
agree with
say
that.
Belichick. How about you, Ray?
Then with that Castle year too, it was back when he still had the dominant defenses, which helped a lot. But yeah, that was one of his best coaching jobs especially without Brady. I would say right now Belichick has the edge, but if Reid wins another Super Bowl, I mean, because to me Andy Reid's been a good coach his whole career. It didn't matter. He's made winners out of teams that like Philly. He had. I was never a huge fan of Donovan McNabb. I didn't think he was bad, but I think Reid got the most out of him that anybody could have. I think Andy Reid's an excellent coach, and so he wins another Super Bowl. I'd put him right up there with Belichick easily.
Right. How about you, Ralph?
Well, I'm a believer in. I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from Belichick, but guys like Joe Gibbs, who won 3 Super Bowls with 3 mediocre quarterbacks over about a 10-year period, to me, that's remarkable. Andy Reid, not only did he do well, Mike Vick, who I never liked, he won with Michael Vick too. And then he actually comes to Kansas City with Alex Smith and gets into the playoffs too. I think, if I was starting a team, I'd want him as my coach because I know no matter who the quarterback is, he's gonna do well. Obviously, Belichick. You can make the argument for Belichick, but like you said with Parcells too, and some people think Parcells. I think Parcells is as great a coach as anyone. He's only won 2 Super Bowls, but my God, I mean, he just took these reclamation projects over and instantly turned them around. And to me, that's just an amazing, amazing thing.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a great topic. It really is. It should be a fun game, you know. I don't like all the hype. I try not to turn on the TV till like 6:30. I'll have some guest over, but I just want to wish everyone have a great Super Bowl weekend, you know. And if you gamble, please try to, you know, bet with your head, not over it, as they always say. And any last comments on the Super Bowl? The
Well, I
Jets.
was going to say everyone's waiting for my pick because they're going to bet the other way, which is smart. And
I thought you picked already.
I did pick, and I think everyone's going to bet the other way, which is
Anyone?
we're betting with your head. That's the way to do it.
I'm going to do it. Any other comments? Anything on the draft or anything else?
Well, I might say that Kansas City, I think, will win, but I'll be cheering for the Beagles.
All
So
right. Quickly, here's
Uh,
go ahead,
yeah.
Rob.
Oh, you're going to say something about the draft?
Well, I was going to say I was going to do something very quickly.
Yeah, go on. I want to
I'm
hear
going to
this
name
because
three quarterbacks. I want you to tell me over under pick number 4.5. You ready? Okay. Shakur Sanders, Ray, over under 4.5. Pick number 4.5.
I'm gonna go over.
Wow. What? Any number? Any idea?
7.
I don't say that. I don't. Okay.
We
Ralph,
better not.
over under Shakur Sanders, 4.5.
it's Shadur, I think.
Shador.
Anyway, I think I'm going to go with Ray. I think he's going to slip. I think people, the whole. Yeah, I'll go over.
Okay. Um, I'm going to go under. I think he's going to go. People, I always say they get quarterback nuts.
True.
Ralph, you start. Over under 4.5. Cam Ward.
Yeah, I'd say he'll get picked before.
Okay. Ray.
Under, yeah, I think everything I see, obviously these mock drafts don't mean anything, but everything I see has them going in the top 2 or 3,
Right.
1, 2, or 3.
I'm going to say under. The last one, I'm going to change it up a little. I'm going to start with Ray. 14, pick number 14. Over under 14.5. Jackson Dart, the quarterback from Ole Miss.
Over. I think he might go in the end towards to me, he'd be a late first rounder or early second rounder. But, they're going to go through, see what he does at the combine and all that stuff. And that could raise things. But right now, I'd say late first or probably more like early second to me.
So
I could see the Jets taking him if he's drops far enough.
So you're saying over. How about you,
I think
Ralph?
over.
Marty, I think, if his arm strength is a little better at the combine than they think, I think he'd probably go under. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be close at this point. These teams, they just find ways to fall in love with quarterbacks no matter what. And, they rationalize this stuff to themselves. And it only takes one.
I didn't watch a lot of them, but I wasn't that impressed with them myself to draft them that high.
Well, that could be said for a lot of quarterbacks we've seen over the years.
Oh, I agree.
I'm going to go under. I'm going to say he's going to be a top 10 pick just from the history. I'm going to go out on the limb. I just want to mention one last thing because since our last podcast, I happened to run into two huge Viking fans, and both I asked them about Sam Darnold, and both went ballistic saying, I don't want any part of that guy ever again. I just thought you'd get a kick out of that. Big fans, both of them, especially one, fans for years, knew a lot about football. So,
Yeah.
All right, we'll close that out, Sam Darnold. All right, any other things? Enjoy the game. For Ray Clifford, Ralph Schrager, Marty Schupak. Let's go Jets. Until next time.